So I read Josina Anderson had a tweet yesterday, and I'll read it to you. A league source also just told me that initial talks with Eagles offensive coordinator candidates, their camps, have gone well, adding that the feedback has been on wanting questions assuaged on complete autonomy over the offense, similar to what Kellen Moore enjoyed when he was in Philly. Those concerns were met with responses ensuring an elite candidate should not anticipate any interference, the source said. And I thought to myself when I was thinking about that, is that a real workable situation for the head coach of the football team who is offensive minded to have his offensive coordinator have complete autonomy and his defensive coordinator have complete autonomy, and neither of them he really even hired in the first place? And I know he is owning it from a public standpoint that Nick is saying he is going to hire the offensive coordinator.
Right.
At best, it will be collaborative with Howie and Mr. Lurie and him. At worst, it will be Howie deciding who it is and Nick saying he's okay with it. So how I felt in 2024 was, especially after the way that the 2023 season ended, we're in this situation where people are literally asking the coach what he does. That we almost have a lame duck coach without a lame duck contract. A guy that nobody really sort of knows what he does, whatever. Now, it was proven to be not that big an issue that year. In the end, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. But I go back to the beginning of that year. I even remember at the beginning of that year, some fourth down situations he was going for. It almost seemed Nick was trying to show that he was still involved, right? That he had a call in something. I don't think you can do this twice. And I understand everybody's desire to say they don't want Nick involved in the offense. They don't want Nick involved in the defense. Set the culture, whatever that is. It is possible to do both. It is possible to be involved in one of those things and set the culture. And I think that the culture that they're trying to set becomes much more difficult to set if everyone in the building thinks that the head coach doesn't have any say in anything. If you can have all the respect for Nick Sirianni you want as a player, but when you're in a this or that situation, when there's a conflict, if you think somebody else is actually making those calls that he doesn't have the hammer to bring down, then I'm telling you, it makes it a little bit harder to respect who he is and what he's doing. And I just think that they are putting themselves in a situation. And we'll have the audio in a second because I think they even reaffirmed what Josina Anderson said by what they didn't say, both Howie and Nick. I just think, and I know that nobody cares. I know that most of, if you're listening,
don't care right now.
Yes, that the listeners are saying, I don't care if Nick's involved. I don't care. Just bring some. But I'm just telling you that I can't imagine a situation where not only does the head coach not have a say in those things, but probably didn't hire the coordinators. And then you put yourself in this situation where at the end of the year, if the offense is really, really good, right, and that offensive coordinator gets a head coach offer somewhere else, and the Eagles are looking at this situation here, and also, last thing, if you're Nick Sirianni, how are you not looking at the offensive coordinator saying, this is a guy who could have my job? Yeah. Because do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. This is just not – I thought it in 24, and I think it now. I just think the way that they will do this, if this is in fact the case, is not a tenable situation.
So I hear you on all of those things. And I think all of those things are certainly valid. Here's where my concern comes in at. As I continue to think about this, I think about it, Spike, more in the sense of when things don't go well, things aren't going well.
Yes.
How are you able to resolve it? Is there one voice? Is there one authoritative voice that everybody respects and they know he's the one who's in charge? I think that was part of the issue in 2023. I think it's part of the issue in 2025. They were able to overcome it in 2024 because they had something that was unique and dynamic that it superseded the friction.
The running game.
That was brewing. Yes.
Yes.
Saquon in the running game.
Yeah.
That allowed them to overcome the friction that was there with the egos and the personality on the offensive side of the ball. The egos, the personality, the amount of money that they make, the footing that each player who's in that position, star wide receiver, star quarterback, like all these guys who feel like they have a right to step outside of what is the team framework and voice their opinion. Like, we want to sweep the AJ stuff under the rug, but that's a clear, to me, indication of usurping authority. When you go out and do what he did repeatedly, and everybody is afraid to actually address it in the building and tell him to shut up and don't say another word, it went on for weeks.
And then the owner had to go onto the field and talk to him about it. What does that say about the say of the head coach? And they can say they respect him all they want. And
I like him.
Yes.
They like him.
Yes.
Respecting him is staying within the boundaries that he sets.
And you can respect him as a person, but respecting him as the coach and leader is a different thing.
Yes.
And it's not that I don't think they believe in what he says, all of those things.
They like him, all of that. But when things aren't going well,
yes,
there should be one voice leading this. Not what we've seen the last 2 to 3 years. And again, in 24, God bless us. We got a Super Bowl out of it. But we saw what happened in 2023, and then we saw in 2025 when it continued to happen, they couldn't fight their way out of it. And now the head coach is in a position where everybody's questioning what is his role on the team. So if they're doing that from the outside, what are the players saying when things aren't going well? I can go above his head, or even if I decide to step outside of what he wants me to do, what's going to happen to me?
Well, and that shows
what's going to happen to me.
That shows you the difference, because I promise when John Harbaugh is introduced as New York Giants head coach, nobody's going to say, "What do you do here?" Right. And when Mike Tomlin gets introduced as the head coach, nobody's going to say, "What do you do here?" Because it will be assumed that they will be able to go into either of their coordinators and say, "I want this to happen, fix this." But like the two things on this. First of all, and you said this, when there are 5 people in charge, nobody's in charge.
Yep.
There has to be one final voice, and it can't be Howie. It can't be Mr. Lurie. Not in the operations of the football team. It has to be the head coach. It has to be. There has to be one person who has the hammer, who when mommy and dad, when the 2 kids are fighting, you go over to dad, and dad said, "This is it. I'm done. Whatever. It's got to be this." And then the other, I lost the other thing on that. I just don't think this setup is going to, on 24. So a lot of people will look at 24 in a lot of different ways, from the coaching setup to how they ran the offense and blah, 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 and say, this is proof that it could be done this way and win. But what it is proof of is that it was done that way. It doesn't mean that it is something that you should try to replicate in the same exact way. You could drink too much, drive home from the bar, and get home safely, right? You could get from point A to point B. It doesn't mean that the best way to get home from the bar is to drive home after you've been drinking. Right. And I think not that they got lucky in 24, they deserve a lot of credit for everything that happened, but a little bit they got lucky that some of it didn't blow up in their faces. And
because it almost did.
And I wish, instead of taking the lesson from 24, that we can do this again and it'll work because it worked then. I wish they took the lesson of, we got away with one there. But we saw what happened in 23 and 25, and we see that the bigger group of information that we have is that it doesn't work. And we can't do that. And if they don't trust Nick Sirianni to be involved in the offense or hire a coordinator that he can collaborate with, then maybe he's not your head coach. Or maybe you have to look at talking about Howie's position. Maybe you have to look at yourself and say, maybe you need to hire somebody who you have a little more trust in, that can handle those sorts of things. Because I just think this situation, it looks like it could blow up in their face.
And I'll say this. And this is all before we know who they're hiring as the OC.
Sure. Yes, it could be Scott Loeffler.
So, ultimately, I say that to say ultimately they could be going back to a sort of Nick Sirianni model of what they want to do offensively, somebody who comes in who wouldn't have a problem with Nick being a part of the offense, having a voice in the offense. He is the head coach.
Yes.
So he's going to wiggle his way in there one way or the other. We've seen that every year. So does that ruffle whoever feathers you're bringing in and cause friction there? Like, that's why I think when we talk about them going out and doing something independent of what the quarterback wants or what the head coach wants, I don't view that as a good way of going about doing things. They are the two most essential figures in the organization when it comes to the football team. They had to have a say. I wouldn't want to hire an OC that Jalen isn't on board with. I don't know if that's a recipe for success. The head coach.
Certainly the head coach.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if that's a recipe for success, bringing someone in and saying, welcome into the team. You got complete autonomy. What you say goes. These guys that have won a Super Bowl already before you got here, they're submissive to you. And they actually go along with it.
And my question as an OC would be...
I just don't know if they will do that.
My question as an OC would be, okay, what does Nick do then?
So I just...
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
It's weird, man.
It'll be... When they just... I think we'll certainly know more when we see
who it is,
who they hire.
Yes,
because in that way we're gonna say, okay, they hired this guy. This is his background.
Yes,
this is any other right. Like right now, we're trying to figure out who we want them to hire versus who we think they will hire.